So hopefully y'all are getting prompted with that now. And yeah, please feel free to go off video if you'd rather not be. But we're just again going to record the actual presentation part, which the focus for today is on the announcing this Grant Innovation Lab, which is at least the working title of what we got going on in terms of just coordinating all of our different activities around grant innovation. So the research side, the standard side, and the community side. So we'll definitely talk more about that as we go. So yeah, this work is kind of emerging after witnessing a couple of different problems, or at least thinking that there were some problems. At the start of the year, just after having applied to a bunch of grant programs, it was clear that granting in the space, especially given the overall bear market, was changing in a variety of ways. I mistakenly was worried that a lot of groups are just going to effectively convert grants to in-house VCs. Fortunately, that is a pretty limited trend, and usually alongside still some kind of granting efforts. But yeah, nonetheless, it became clear that there were limited opportunities for kind of collective learning across grant programs. I know Nate and Umar's colleague Sav has written some great retrospectives on specific grant programs, and there's been some other kind of isolated writing. But yeah, there wasn't any kind of systematic focus on the research side, as well as limited kind of technical coordination. And a lot of the efforts at community building really have come from people who are employed somewhere that is a for-profit entity of some kind, or at least supporting some kind of specific ecosystem. So there was some hesitance from a variety of groups to participate once it's outside their immediate social circle. And especially as Michal and I, who co-authored the Michal Wakar and myself, who co-authored the State of Web3 Grants report, as we got into it, we saw that there is a lot of interest to coordinate and collaborate, and it was just unclear for groups what is sort of the best path forward there. And so we're excited to announce the Grant Innovation Lab, which is an effort of Metagov and DAOstar. Just a quick aside in case the orgs are new for anyone, Metagov is sort of the overall nonprofit, and we're a 501c3 nonprofit in the US, specifically focused on governance research. So that's in any kind of digital context, whether that's digital community, open source software, AI, Web3, and DAOs. It's sort of broadly looking at just online governance in a variety of ways. And then the DAOstar initiative, which is at least as of today, is a sub-project of Metagov. It may eventually become a standalone, but for today, it is a sub-project of Metagov, excuse me. And DAOstar specifically focuses on standard building and coordination in the Web3 space pertaining to DAO interoperability was really our starting point. And now we've expanded to the grant metadata standard that we'll get into some regulatory technical interfaces and other kind of standards and technical coordination. And so Josh and I believe I saw Tyler on the call, and some others had really kicked off the effort early in the year, I think roughly around February, with this idea of, hey, let's have a technical coordination standard around for metadata standards pertaining to grant programs. And within a few months, separately, as mentioned, Michal Wakar and myself had gotten some support from Gitcoin and from a private backer to do some research on the state of Web3 grants. And we got to look into these 13 programs that have committed or spent upwards of over $1 billion and had over 5,000 grantees collectively. And so we really got a chance to take a first kick at the can of breaking down some projects. And I know we're very pleased to see both the positive reception of folks who somehow worked through the 80 some odd pages of our report. And we're thankful to the Gitcoin crew for also doing a prettier, more condensed version. And I'll link to both of those in case anyone missed them. But yeah, this was a great starting point. We're excited to see the amount of folks that want to see more research coming up. And so the sort of the vision and mission that we're operating with this effort is, in the longer term, where we want to see is to try to get an understanding of the granting process and tooling relating to grant issuance so that the lives of those applying for grants can be as easy as possible, while there's the ability to maximize the understanding and mapping of impact for those who are actually deploying the funds, hopefully with some kind of theory of change of what they want to see happen in the world as a result of their deployment. And the more focused mission is really conducting research, technical coordination, and community efforts to really create actionable advancements pertaining to grant programs. And so, as mentioned, these are kind of the three buckets of activity on the research, technical, and network building side. And so, from the research perspective, we have a bunch of questions that we're currently exploring and a bunch of grants that we're currently waiting to hear back on, ranging from, we have a few groups that are interested in potentially supporting a V2 of the State of Web3 grants report. That way, we will hopefully be able to go from 13 to somewhere in the 20 to 25 project range to have broken down. We're also in talks about potentially doing a state of retroactive funding in Web3 to look at, Optimism and DAO drops and some of the Gitcoin efforts and others who have done any version of retroactive funding. I personally have just been seeing a lot of posting about how retroactive is the future and folks getting really excited about it. And we're not going to be shocked if there is a strong increase in the amount of people wanting to run retroactive grants, given the fact that unlike a prospective grant where you're kind of seeding work and hoping impact comes, retroactive brings at least the idea that you could fund work that is already done and has impact. I think an important thing to not forget is how do we help projects get to the point where they can have impact, especially for those who don't just have the privilege to have the time and availability to just do work without getting paid up front. But that's some of the research that we hope to conduct and get into and survey folks on. But yeah, some of the other projects we're really excited about include grantee assessments. We want to do literature reviews of kind of research and impact funding and program evaluation from major government foundations, from private funding organizations, just to really understand what are the best practices beyond the Web3 space that we could potentially bring back here. And we also want to explore some different kind of frameworks or matrices of various kinds. I know Carl Servone, that many of you here may know, he threw out the idea when we were proposing the initial research to do a grant maturity index, which is a great idea, but we kind of need that to be its own dedicated effort, and just trying to come up with different useful metrics and information frameworks that can be helpful to the space. As well as doing some kind of in-depth assessments of applications, kind of reviewing the state of tooling and helping folks understand what are the different tooling options, who's using what makes, what problems did these different solutions solve, and just trying to give sort of a non-sales pitchy approach to understanding the landscape. And yeah, just thinking about, what kind of overhead is needed to run grant programs. I was actually doing a little bit of this work earlier this week. And it was just really interesting to see that amongst a number of programs, there's a strong convergence around roughly the 17 to 20% mark, frequently being the cost of overhead for running a grant program, with the leanest one we saw being in the 10% and the highest one being over 30%, but that program does more than just run grants. And so, yeah, we're excited to do all of this, as well as conflict of interest is a topic that came up a lot this year in a variety of different ecosystems, and better understanding the state of conflict of interest and disclosure statements in different programs. And again, what are some best practices that can be put in place to make it clearer for everyone? But the research side, as mentioned, is only kind of one of the three focus areas. Another one is this kind of more technical side, which we really appreciate those who have already taken a look at or provided any kind of feedback to our metadata standard. And I'll drop a link to that in a moment. But we're really excited about getting feedback from a bunch of groups, revising the standard as needed, and then really pushing for adoption early in the new year, and trying to have it by end of February, end of Q1, so that we're in a place where we could have at least alignment from a number of the newer programs, because we recognize that for some of the longest standing programs, they may not have the same benefits come to them, given that they are already pretty well entrenched with their process and it's already serving their goals well. And we especially want to capture a lot of the groups that are changing and increasing their focus or changing their focus in any kind of way. But especially as we get that metadata standard in place, there's a chance for a shared database for approved grants that can potentially integrate with a GAP protocol or other impact measurement solutions, such as OS Observer and other tools that are really meant to help us have better data infrastructure to empower impact assessment in the first place. As Val just dropped in the chat, this idea of a common app is one that has come up a bunch, especially I feel like the holy grail of that idea is sort of the ZK enabled common app that both is privacy preserving, but at the same time can actually track reputation across wallets, across single wallets, across programs rather. That way, if someone goes to apply for a grant at Uniswap or at Dfinity or Ethereum Foundation or wherever else, that grantee can actually have their reputation trail them. That way, if they're a grant farmer and just copy pasting the same idea with no intent of doing any work, they can have that be seen and witnessed. But at the same time, if they are a grantee who is actually high quality and delivering on work consistently, if they show up to a new grant program, I think both them and the grant operators of that program would benefit from knowing the fact that they have done this kind of work in the past and getting to actually track some of it via some open source protocols. We're also really excited to just think about what other kind of shared resources could exist, whether it's, just list of grant programs. We know there's a few that kind of are out there. How can we consolidate those and get more coordination there? And what kind of data from grant programs can we add to the Gov-based data set, which is a series of data sets out of Metagov to look into governance research broadly. And so the final kind of bucket of activity is really around the community building and coming back to the previous ones of like coordinating any kind of working groups that emerge there. We just confirmed that we're going to be taking over. Some folks may have already been part of it, but the Web3 Foundation has done kind of a quarterly call for grant operators in the past. We're going to be taking that one over in the new year and coordinating with the Web3 Foundation to make sure it has more of the grant programs in the space reflected there, and also going to be coordinating with some folks to launch a new Telegram group that is going to be exclusive to grant round operators, as well as continuing the DAOstar grants management Telegram group, which is just going to be focused on any technical coordination that comes up. And, we'll be doing a variety of activities pertaining to that, but really the biggest one that we're currently planning is this Web3 Grant Summit, which is going to be a 2-day activity, either the Monday, Tuesday going into ETH Denver, or more likely the Tuesday, Wednesday. And yeah, we're excited for one day to be fully public, open to anyone who wants to join and really focused on the grantee experience. And the second day is going to be a half day just for grant round operators. And then towards the end of the day, we'll also include service providers or program operators. And we'll kind of just have a more focused discussion on, what are the biggest needs of folks running grant programs and how this community can serve them, but also exploring how we can actually make advancements on some of these shared ideas like the shared database, the Common App, any advancements on the standard, etc. And, one of the efforts that I'm involved in beyond Metagov at the moment is building a new research foundation that currently I think has the backing of 5 different ecosystems or organizations for the purpose of advancing on proposer-builder separation research. There should be an announcement on that hopefully by the end of next week. But one of the things that I'm personally really hopeful to support more of is getting more cross-grant program collaboration and thinking about whether it's via new vehicles or not, or if Metagov can potentially be a fiscal sponsor for some of these efforts. Regardless on the approach, we are just excited to see an increase in coordination from different programs that all want to fund the same topic area, whether it's, proposer builder separation, whether it's ZK related, whether it's governance related. We just think that having these kind of programmatic coordinative functions would actually really help the space overall. And so the next steps, and I'll drop the links to these in chat once I exit full screen. But yeah, if anyone wants to and has not taken a look at any of our reports, please feel free to take a look at those and to share those out as appropriate on your end. We have the standard, which is on a GitHub, on our GitHub, excuse me. So please feel free to jump in, provide direct feedback there. We're probably going to set up a call sometime in early January to have some more public discussion on feedback to the standard. And we're already reaching out to a few organizations one-on-one to get some kind of private feedback as well. So if you're interested in either one of those, please let me know. And I'll also have this interest form, which I'll share here and I'll be posting on some public channels later so that folks can kind of express, hey, I'm a grant round operator. I want to be in the private chats and anything focused for grant round operators, or I want to be part of a working group, or this all just sounds cool. Please keep me updated on the public announcements. So I know that was a speedy version of me rambling through a bunch of ideas there, and happy to chat about any of them at more length. But I'm excited to stop the recording in a moment and to get into some discussion around, for folks who are here, what are you most hoping to see from this kind of coordinative effort, especially from a group that, we're not running a grant program ourselves. We're not building any tooling for folks. Like everything we're doing is kind of meant to be neutral and coordinative. So the hope is that we can provide some value that might be tougher from individual ecosystems, just from a competition lens. And so, yeah, we'd love to hear what else we can do. And if we have time, I'd really love to hear some thoughts on what do you think we need to do with this Grant Innovation Lab in the next 6 or so months so that we can achieve one of our own internal goals, which is by the summer, having enough of a track record of progress that we could turn to traditional funders like the National Science Foundation in the US or the EU bodies for science funding, or the Sloan Foundations, the Omidyar networks, these other kind of large science and grant funding agencies, and to actually get them excited because all of them have open questions on grants. And yeah, how do we best position the work that we're doing to truly be appealing to as wide of an audience as possible? So I'm going to stop sharing and turn off the recording. And then I will drop in